If an executioner does their job well, chances are they will largely be forgotten by history. Fame, or indeed infamy, usually being reserved for those on the sharp side of their axe. Those that do find themselves remembered past their years normally do so because of the number of executions they performed, such as Albert Pierpoint, who oversaw the execution of up to 600 people. Or perhaps of their route to becoming an executioner, as was the case with Elizabeth Sugrue, who was herself set to be hanged until she volunteered to hang those who were condemned alongside her. One man, however, gained notoriety not for any of these reasons, but instead because of how poor he was at his job and how brutal his executions were. That man was Jack Ketch. Little is known about Ketch's early life, though it's widely believed that he was likely born in Ireland. Like many executioners, he spent some of his time on the wrong side of the law and did a stint in Southwark's notorious Marshalsea prison. After an apprenticeship under London's common hangman Edward Dunn, Ketch was appointed public executioner around 1663. The first documented mention of Ketch's services was in the proceedings of the Old Bailey in a murder trial in 1676, where it was recorded, "All was too little, for the jury brought him in guilty, and Jack Ketch will make him free." During his 23-year career, Ketch was not the only executioner ending the lives of London's condemned, but he was by far the most famous, earning a reputation for brutality so remarkable that his name became slang for any executioner for death, and even the devil himself. The motives behind his butchery of those condemned are a matter of speculation. Some think he was just grossly incompetent, but there was likely another factor at play: money. Executioners were paid for each death they facilitated, but it wasn't a prosperous profession. Ketch even went on strike in 1682 for better wages and won. But executioners did have other ways to earn money from their services. They were typically allowed to keep the clothes of the condemned, which were then sold. As many wanted to appear at their best in their final moments on this mortal coil, it wasn't uncommon for them to arrive at the gallows in their highest quality garments. These could then be sold for a considerable profit. Ketch and other executioners commonly auctioned off the rope used for each hanging. The hangman's rope was a highly coveted talisman among the superstitious. They believed it was imbued with good luck and mystical healing powers. Gamblers and fashionable women alike clambered for a chance to buy even a strand of the noose. For a rope used in the execution of a particularly notable criminal, Ketch could make as much as a shilling an inch. Besides the material goods that could be sold for profit following an execution, Ketch undoubtedly made a tidy sum from taking bribes. While executioners did have to learn their craft, it was not a profession with many specific protocols or quality control. Before 1850, most hangings were done with the short drop method, in which the condemned stands on a support like a stool or ladder with the noose around their neck. When the support is removed, the condemned is left to dangle from the rope as their body weight tightens the noose around their neck. The manner and length of death were largely in the hands of the executioner, who purchased the rope, soaped or greased it, decided the number of coils in the noose, and fitted it to the prisoner's neck. When each part of this process is undertaken correctly, the death is as short as possible, with the neck breaking upon the drop. But if proper care is not taken, the prisoner may remain conscious well into the terrible ordeal of slow strangulation. A good hanging resulted in death within a few minutes. A poor one could take nearly an hour. In one of the worst recorded cases of Ketch's work, condemned prisoner Stephen College hung for half an hour before Ketch gave up on the noose and resorted to quartering the man and tossing his entrails into a fire. So it was no surprise that many a condemned man would pass Jack Ketch as much money as he could spare and ask him to grant a fast, clean death. The skill that went into ensuring a speedy death by hanging was immense, so it wasn't unusual to see a wide variety of results, even with the most experienced executioners. But surely a sentence of beheading was sure to guarantee an instantaneous death for any condemned man, right? If Ketch was your executioner, apparently not. Beheadings were rare events, usually reserved for high-born nobles. It wasn't unheard of for a professional more familiar with the method of execution to be brought in from abroad to complete the task. But two Englishmen met an axe wielded by Jack Ketch with disastrous results. Well, more disastrous than expected. When Lord William Russell was convicted of plotting an insurrection and assassination of King Charles II in the Rye House plot of 1683, he was sentenced to execution by beheading for treason. Russell paid Ketch 10 guineas the night before the execution to ensure it was as fast as possible. But when the time came, Ketch carried out the job in what was described as a butcherly fashion that took at least 3 swings of the axe. In a pamphlet titled The Apology of Jack Ketch, Esquire, Ketch claimed the prisoner did not dispose himself as was most suitable, and that he was interrupted while taking aim. The botched execution was a topic of heated public debate, with some claiming Ketch was drunk and others positing that someone had tipped him more than 30 guineas to ensure that Russell endured agony in his final few minutes. The beheading of James Scott, 1st Duke of Monmouth, also for treason following an unsuccessful rebellion 2 years later, made Russell's execution look merciful by comparison. Monmouth reportedly thrust money at Ketch as he mounted the scaffold, saying, "Here are 6 guineas for you. Do not hack me as you did my Lord Russell. I have heard that you struck him 3 or 4 times. My servant will give you some more gold if you do the work well." When the blade of the axe was put against Monmouth's neck, he expressed that he did not think it was sharp enough. After the first swing, Monmouth struggled up from the block to... That is horrendous. God, no, I'm picturing the whole thing now, and the look of exasperation when the big... Please sharpen that, hurry up with my dispatch. Someone is chopping your head off. You already tell him, "I don't think the blade is sharp enough." Then, after he strikes the back of your neck, you are able to get up and complain. Good Lord. God, that was a nervous laugh, I have to say. Whew, okay. After the first swing, Monmouth struggled up from the block to glare at his executioner before laying down again. Another blow of the axe struck the Duke's shoulder, and after 3, he was still writhing and moaning in pain. Ketch flung down his axe and said, "I cannot do it," but the sheriff threatened him until he picked up the instrument again. 5 more strokes followed, with the task eventually being finished off using a butcher's knife. Despite the crowd knowing that executions are inherently gruesome affairs, Monmouth's beheading was so horrific that it enraged those who stood witness, with many lunging toward Ketch, ready to tear him to pieces. He escaped with his life only under the protection of a military guard. The sheer brutality of Ketch's work seemed proof that the man had accepted a substantial bribe to make the execution as excruciating as possible. A year after Monmouth's execution, Jack was relieved of his duties after a confrontation with a sheriff. He was sent to Bridewell Prison, and his assistant, Pascal Rose, was promoted to executioner. But in an ironic twist of fate, Rose was convicted of robbery 4 months into his tenure, and Ketch was reappointed in time to hang his former assistant. Jack Ketch died of unrecorded causes sometime in late 1686, ending his 2-decade career of butchery and bribery. For 2 centuries after his death, the executioner's name became synonymous with hangman and all things execution-related. Even the room in Newgate Prison, where they boiled the severed limbs of those quartered for high treason, became Jack Ketch's kitchen, and the slum around Turnmill Street in Clerkenwell became Ketch's warren. Naughty children were told to clean up their act before Jack found them, and many a deathbed conversation featured the executioner's name. After all, we never know how or when death will take us. What better illustration of that uncertainty than an execution at the hands of the brutal, unpredictable Jack Ketch? Thank you for watching. Right then, take care, and I'll see you next time with another story that will make you say, well, I never.